Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Dozens of people rallied today demanding a chance to speak to their congressman. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. They rallied outside Parkway Plaza in El Cajon, calling on District 48 Representative Darrell Issa to act on a number of issues. KPBS reporter John Carroll says they had one central demand.
The usual sounds of traffic along a busy stretch of Fletcher Parkway mingled with the sounds of protests today. Drivers honking their horns in support of these demonstrators who have one big request of Congressman Darrell Issa.
Hold a town hall.
Town halls across the nation have been tough places to be lately for Republicans and even some Democrats. The head of the GOP campaign arm recently advised his fellow Republicans to stop holding town halls, but protest organizer Connie Elder says Issa owes it to his constituents.
He is our representative. We certainly expect that he would be willing to meet with us and talk with us, and we're going to keep demanding that.
The homemade signs carried messages on a number of topics, this one with a dental theme, carried by retired dentist David Wilner.
We need our congressmen to vote for what is right when it comes to saving our democracy.
I reached out to Congressman Darrell Issa's office for a comment on all this, but I never heard back. Though the majority of people driving by seemed to support the protesters by honking their horns, a couple did not. One man screamed at them from his truck. Another one drove up to me, saying she was furious about the upside-down American flags, a sign of distress. But Connie Elder says she and her fellow protesters are not deterred, and she says they won't give up.
We'll be here every Thursday, 11 to 1, rain or shine. And we're going to grow.
He's got to face his constituents. Have him come here and tell us to our face.
Voices raised in protest, if not in a town hall, then on the street. John Carroll, KPBS News.
President Donald Trump and his so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, are planning to fire more than 70,000 Veterans Affairs employees. KPBS military and veterans reporter Andrew Dyer says the VA is already telling veterans to get used to the changes.
In a VA News email sent to veterans Wednesday, VA Secretary Doug Collins said he had a message for veterans. It was a link to a video on his X account.
Our goal is to reduce VA employment levels to 2019 in-strength numbers, roughly 398,000 employees, from our current level of approximately 470,000 employees. We're going to accomplish this without making cuts to health care or benefits to veterans and VA beneficiaries.
Collins confirmed reports that the VA would lay off more than 70,000 people. The department had beefed up staffing to meet the demands of millions more veterans newly eligible for benefits under the 2022 PACT Act. Collins suggested problems with veteran care are in part related to bloat and bureaucracy at the VA.
There are many people complaining about the changes we're making at the VA. But what most of them are really saying is, let's just keep doing the same thing at the VA has always done. No, not going to happen.
The VA says more than 25% of its workforce are veterans. President Donald Trump's counselor, Alina Habba, responded to concerns about veterans being caught up in government layoffs from the White House this week.
We have a fiscal responsibility to use taxpayer dollars to pay people that actually work. That doesn't mean that we forget our veterans by any means. We are going to care for them in the right way, but perhaps they're not fit to have a job at this moment or not willing to come to work.
Secretary Collins was just as blunt in his message to veterans.
And it's extraordinarily difficult for me, especially as a VA leader and your secretary, to make these types of decisions. But the federal government does not exist to employ people. It exists to serve people.
VA San Diego didn't respond to questions this week about local impacts of job cuts. It said last year they'd hired hundreds of people to handle PACT Act growth. One VA San Diego psychologist tells KPBS the looming cuts have patients on edge and staff feeling betrayed. They asked not to use their name because they're not authorized to speak to the press. Collins tells veterans these moves will improve care and that he'll keep them informed.
But we'll be making major changes, so get used to it.
About 200,000 veterans live in San Diego County. About 150,000 of them are enrolled in VA San Diego healthcare. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
The showers linger and the cool air stays for us. 51 for the low tonight. We're getting rid of that precipitation, though, as we get into the weekend just in time, thankfully. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
Today, President Trump announced a one-month suspension of tariffs on Canada and Mexico. It comes just days after Trump imposed the 25% tax on imports, sparking global backlash. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down the back and forth over the plan.
Whiplash in Washington. After implementing sweeping new tariffs Tuesday, President Donald Trump is hitting pause, announcing the 25% tariff on most products from Mexico will now be delayed. Ontario Premier Doug Ford lambasting the administration over the economic tit for tat.
What a mess President Trump has created here. The only thing certain on these 30 days is uncertainty.
It's a significant development on the president's signature economic plan, which economists warned would raise prices for American consumers.
We import a lot of our fruit and vegetables from Canada and Mexico. That next trip to the supermarket is going to be a whole lot more uncomfortable.
The cost of producing cars, too, throughout North America could jump anywhere from $3,500 to $12,000, according to an analysis from the Anderson Economic Group. For some in the auto industry, the pause brings a momentary sigh of relief.
The administration's goals are admirable. We can't turn them on a dime and build a $4 billion facility, assembly plant in the United States in a couple of weeks.
Still, the new 20% tariff on Chinese imports remains in place, and the uncertainty over a trade war brewing on both borders brings fear that the American economic engine could stall.
What you're also seeing then is very sharp declines in consumer and business confidence. That in itself would cause economic harm.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities has been a point of contention nationwide for years. And that fight is playing out here in San Diego County, where KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis says the sheriff's department is facing scrutiny.
During the first Trump administration, California passed a sanctuary law that lays out exactly when local jails can transfer people to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. SB 54 says that only people with felony convictions within the past 15 years or misdemeanors within 5 years can be transferred to ICE. But now advocates say that there have been a number of questionable transfers by the San Diego Sheriff's Office, including a 2023 case that appears to be a violation of the law.
The person that we're seeing that was transferred had a felony conviction that was 21 years old. So that falls outside of the SB54 parameters that allow for the Sheriff's Department to have transferred that person into ICE custody, right?
Felicia Gomez is with the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties. She's talking about a man who was convicted of assault in 2002, then was arrested for vandalism in December 2022. But it's unclear whether he was ever charged or convicted. Yet, he was transferred to ICE a month later.
The person had a 21-year-old conviction. That person's already served their time. Why do they continue to be punished for that very same conviction that happened over 21 years ago?
How this law is followed depends on where you live. On the one hand, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office stopped all ICE transfers in 2021. On the other, the Orange County Sheriff's Office has transferred more people than anyone in the state, with 220 transfers in 2023. Meanwhile, San Diego had 25 transfers that year. At the end of January, KPBS asked San Diego Sheriff Kelly Martinez for an interview. Her team scheduled and then canceled 2 interviews in February. Advocates have asked Sheriff Martinez about these issues during annual public forums. Here's Advocate Clint Carney talking about the impact of the transfers.
One thing we try to do with survivors is we try to help them, our clients, rebuild trust with local law enforcement and to begin to develop a relationship with local police officers. But when colluding with ICE occurs, it eliminates any chance of our clients ever trusting any law enforcement officer.
At these forums, Sheriff Martinez has defended her decision to continue ICE transfers. saying that victims' families support the practice.
Comparing our agency to other sheriff jurisdictions like Los Angeles, Contra Costa, Humboldt, Santa Clara, San Mateo, San Joaquin, or others is just not realistic. Other counties do not have proximity to the border, which reduces the number of people in their custody who might qualify under state law for transfer.
Get out of the car.
But data showed that the Los Angeles sheriff actually transferred more people to ICE than San Diego before stopping the practice. Martinez also said that she views these transfers as a way to prevent recidivism. She pointed out that 10 out of the 25 transfers from 2023 were in custody for similar crimes they had committed in the past.
As I mentioned last year, as a sheriff, I can legally prevent these offenders from re-victimizing our communities, and I will.
Besides the 2023 case, KPBS found other questionable transfers. In 2022, the San Diego Sheriff's Office transferred a man with a drunk driving conviction from 30 years ago. In 2020, deputies transferred a man with a theft conviction from 20 years ago. Monica Langarica is a senior staff attorney at the Center for Immigration Law and Policy at UCLA. Langarica says that these transfers show inequities in California's criminal justice system, which is something that the state sanctuary laws tried to address.
So that disparity between the treatment of citizens and non-citizens in the exact same criminal legal system is what these policies aim to mitigate.
Langarica and other lawyers have asked the sheriff's office for more information about that 2023 case. But 2 years later, they still don't have answers.
This person was in sheriff's custody for a vandalism charge. You know, we actually don't even know if that individual was ultimately convicted. He could have been arrested, taken to jail, and then released, you know, with no charges filed or with a dismissal or an acquittal, you know, or a conviction. We just don't know.
County supervisors have scheduled another public forum on this issue for April 22nd. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, tariff whiplash. The Trump administration backtracks on many of the trade penalties it imposed 2 days ago. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
White House officials are preparing an executive order directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon to begin the process of dismantling the department. Our Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook has the latest.
People familiar with the matter say that President Donald Trump is preparing to sign an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. He has long signaled his intention to get rid of the department, and this is all a part of his broad effort to shrink the size of the federal government. The administration has been drafting an order to launch the process. It directs the newly confirmed Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, to, quote, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Education Department. McMahon was sworn in on Monday, and just a few hours later, she sent a letter to her staff titled Our Department's Final Mission, referencing the overall efforts to dismantle the department she now leads. Here's what Trump said last month about her role.
I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. I want the states to run schools, and I want Linda to put herself out of a job.
Eliminating the Department of Education would require Congress to act, so Trump is pushing lawmakers on the Hill to pass legislation. While calls to abolish the Education Department or merge it with another federal agency are not new, the move has historically failed to get support from Congress. If Trump succeeds in shuttering the department, it's possible that some programs and funding could be retained and shifted to other agencies. At the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
If you've driven on University Avenue recently, you know you can't drive through parts of it due to ongoing construction. And there are so many barriers that you can barely walk either. Nearby businesses told our media partner KGTV that they're taking a huge hit from the lack of foot traffic. The construction began 2 years ago with the goal of improving traffic by building roundabouts, medians, and sidewalks. But some businesses say the work is behind schedule. They held an event this morning to rally support from local leaders.
I've never seen the full potential of our restaurant due to the fact that there has been an interruption to driving, parking, and foot traffic around the entire corridor.
And according to the city's website, construction is expected to be completed later this year. The beloved Wave Water Park in Vista needs millions of dollars in repairs. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen says there are differing opinions on how to do that.
Does this look like a modern facility?
Vista Councilmember Karina Contreras is giving KPBS a tour of the city-owned Wave Water Park. When it first opened in 1994, it was state-of-the-art. The park was the first in the world to use a flow rider to power its lazy river. But 31 years later, it's showing its age. There's broken concrete on the walkway, rust on the support poles, and leaks in the bathrooms and changing rooms.
A lot of this facility is very, very old, and we have an opportunity now to bring the public in and say, we're going to modernize it. It's going to cost us this amount of money. Let's figure out how we pay for it.
A recent analysis shows the park needs around $3.5 million in repairs to bring it up to code, and another $15 million over the next 10 years to keep it safe and operational.
Upgrades that we're struggling to find a way to afford.
Mayor John Franklin says one way is to turn it over to a private entity to run it and make it profitable. The water park has never made a profit.
The goal is to bring someone who might have a better business acumen than the city of Vista does to make sure that we lose as little money as possible and hopefully even turn a profit. That profit would give us the ability to reinvest in the Wave and make it a great asset for years to come.
The city council, however, rejected that idea at its last meeting.
A private operator is not going to give the consideration to the public that the city of Vista is going to give to the public. And we just know that that's the way it is.
The council will discuss the future of the Wave at its meeting in June. That could include a phased approach to repairs and expanding amenities and operating days and hours. Currently, the park is only open during the summer months. For now, staff are getting the Wave ready to open in May, including resurfacing the lazy river and replacing the pumps for the flow rider. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And while it's been raining down here, it's been snowing in Mount Laguna. Our media partner KGTV took a trip out there and spotted a family enjoying some sledding. The National Weather Service says a winter weather advisory remains in effect until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. The Julian and Spencer Valley School Districts closed at noon today because of the weather. The Mountain Empire Unified School District was closed this morning.
Well, it's been a little bit wet, it's been a little chilly, and guess what? We're going to be wrapping up the storm system just in time for the weekend, and we will have the chance for more to come. Let's break it down for you. First up, those winds weakening, the last of the showers remaining for us as we head into tomorrow. Warmer, drier air as we move into the weekend, so some good news there. And then we're going to be talking about more rain chances next week, which is also good news because as we get through things here, we really do want to establish as much moisture as we can before the wet season comes to a close. First up tonight, 51 the low in the city. The showers still out there for us, and in some spots even the snow. Mount Laguna 26 for the low there does make it snowflakes. This cool low pressure system slides its way east, bringing showers to places like Phoenix. As we head through tomorrow, we still have the chance for maybe just a little bit of moisture out there. Probably the highest elevation squeezing out the best chance of that, but Borrego Springs could see a shower or two, 67 there, as the city holds on to 62 with a few extra clouds. Here's what it looks like through future radar the next couple of hours. You can see most of the moisture leaving us heading into early tomorrow morning. So tomorrow, at least a different day, still a little breezy out there. Little bit of precipitation trying to make its way on through there, but it's limited. And then we're quiet heading into the weekend. So it's all about next week. The action will have multiple storms. The second one could bring some significant wet weather for us here in California. And again, we need it because we don't get much longer to get it. As we talk about the upcoming days here, Saturday, Sunday, we are looking at temperatures holding on to the 60s for the coast. We're actually going to be increasing in the numbers here towards the upper 60s. Plenty of sunshine. I think Sunday is really a pleasant day for us. Monday is when we could see a few more showers come back into view. One of the first storm systems coming in at least provides some extra clouds for the inland communities and puts us back in the mid 60s after the 70s. Mountain communities, the snow showers remain for us as we head into tomorrow, but then after that, we dry out. Monday will be our clouds increasing the next storm system. And note in the desert communities, we'll have extra clouds coming into Monday and Tuesday after we get rid of this storm system heading into tomorrow. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Students at Spreckles Elementary School unveiled a mural they made to honor the activism that inspired Chicano Park's iconic murals. UC San Diego's Mariachi Band helped the kids celebrate their artwork about activism, peace, and compassion. More than 600 students helped to create the mural called Pause for Peace Pillars. They were inspired after reading the KPBS One Book, One San Diego children's selection, Barrio Rising, the protest that built Chicano Park. Principal Camila Abdallah Alim says the students learn to embrace activism.
So at our school, we really do talk a lot about being an upstander and being a bystander and what that looks like. And so really trying to help support our students knowing that activism is important. If we see something, we do something.
And so those paw prints on the top of the painting represent the Spreckles Wildcat students, along with other images of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The painting will be hung outside for all the students to enjoy. Residents of Point Loma and the surrounding areas have been saddened to see a familiar landmark disappear from their community. It was a house on Rosecrans Street with the front yard elaborately decorated in seashells. And while many of the shells were lost forever, some of them were saved. Ken Kramer shows us how it happened in this story about San Diego.
This is Tunaville, Driscoll's Wharf off Harbor Drive in Point Loma, where fishing boats unload their catch, and the home of the seafood market where Tommy Gomes is the owner. His family of Portuguese tuna fishermen first settled in San Diego in 1892.
Yeah, we've been around a long time. You know, they call this area of Point Loma Tunaville in honor of the men and women that worked the tuna boats and worked the canneries of the Portuguese community.
Tommy is passionate about preserving the history of San Diego's tuna fleet, at one time our city's third largest industry.
We fed 90% of the world, ate our tuna. We had Ralston, Farina, A.J. Hines, Checkerboard Square, Bumblebee, Starkist. Everybody was here.
He's got a model of a tuna seiner and other fishing boats, all the old photos running on the TV. Now, meantime, a few miles away, 2000 block of Rosecrans in Point Loma is a house that, until pretty recently, was a landmark. You know, if you ever saw the Shell House of Point Loma, it was a front yard completely covered in seashells, tens of thousands of them, fashioned into towers and intricate designs, so well known that it appeared on tourist maps, the fantastic creation of the late Frank Mendez, a Portuguese tuna fisherman who made his living in the old school way. Bait and hook on the open sea in the warm blue waters south of San Diego.
Hey, here's a big one. Oh, say it takes skill and muscle to bring in a fish that size, but our tuna fishermen have both.
That's the way it was done when Frank Mendez and his wife Elisa bought their home on Rosecrans Street 75 years ago. The Portuguese tradition of tile work of Our Lady of Fatima by the front door, and Elisa, who died recently just short of her 104th birthday. Their son, Dan Mendez, talked with us a while back. He grew up in the house on Rosecrans Street. He told us if you go back years and years ago, the front yard was pretty average.
That's all it was, just green lawn, typical home with the green grass in front.
For years, when his dad would come back from fishing, he'd often have a sack of shells, mostly from the Galapagos Islands, all kinds of shells.
I mean, you got mullis, abalone, clam shells, shells that I don't even know the names of. I mean, they're specific to those islands, you know.
He just kept adding and storing up more sacks year after year, and then when he retired, he tore out the front lawn and started transforming his front yard into this landscape of shells.
When you look at it and you see that all the intricate work that he had to put into it, I mean, each piece is put in individually into cement.
Looking back, doesn't seem like anybody ever asked Frank Mendez, why are you doing this? I'm guessing it must have been something he imagined during long hours at sea. And we don't know if he thought it would last forever. A couple of generations of San Diegans from Point Loma to far beyond who loved the Shell House wish it could have. But with Elisa's death, the house was put up for sale. I guess in the world of real estate, curiosities don't sell. Curb appeal is everything. A few neighbors and some in the Portuguese fishing community heard the front yard would be cleared, and they were able to save some shells. Which brings us back here to Tunaville on Driscoll's Wharf. Tommy Gomes heard what was happening to the shell house and felt he had to save at least some of it, so he did.
We needed to grab and save the shells from the shell house.
A couple of the elaborate shell creations will remain at Tunaville now. When your family has been fishing here for 132 years, you love history, and you know when you've got to step in to preserve it.
Because it really truly is a part of San Diego history, and we're losing a little bit more and more each day.
That was Ken Kramer with that report. If you want to watch more of his stories about San Diego, his half-hour show can be seen every Thursday night at 8 o'clock right here on KPBS. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, the Labor Department is expected to show a modest uptick in hiring as part of its monthly jobs report card. But layoffs could cast a chill over the job market in the coming months. And KPBS Roundtable is discussing the tariff whiplash and what it means for businesses here in San Diego. And as always, you can find all of tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. I wish you a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.